Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. As you know, I'm Hisnara, the editor of Cheeky Little Careers, and for my latest video, I'm pleased to say that I've been joined by Mike Francies. This is a real coup for me because during my previous career as a journalist, I was in fact the private equity correspondent on the Lawyer magazine. So Mike and I go back many, many years, and I've not spoken to him for quite a prolonged period of time. So it's really exciting for me to introduce him. Mike, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I don't think I've ever had someone excited to talk to me before, so it's quite good.
Oh, you're far too modest. What can I say? I mean, look, when it comes to private equity, you really are royalty. You've been, you're synonymous with the private equity space, and have done so much work in that area. And I know Weil's London office is, renowned for the private equity work that you and your team do. I thought I'd start by getting you to talk to me a little bit about private equity, because I know that it's an area that piques a lot of interest because it's always in the news. It's viewed by so many aspiring lawyers as quite a sexy practice area. What do private equity lawyers actually do? How does a typical deal work?
I think it's very simple. I mean, I think private equity has a mystique, rightly so, because of the amount of funds and how well known they are, the amount of deals. But it's basically doing deals. It's a certain type of deal. You need to understand how the leverage works, how the finance works. You need to understand management, how they're incentivized, which makes it a bit different from a public deal or a corporate deal. But at the end of the day, you have all the deals of all the characteristics of any deal, M&A deal. So you as part of the legal skills, you need to understand what's important to the client, understand the DD at a very basic level, make sure the terms are reflected in the legal documents, and also think of downside, how you protect the client.
And what sort of, because my understanding of private equity is, I guess I go back to the day when I watched Pretty Woman, and you've got the character played by, God, what's his name?
Richard Gere.
Richard Gere, that's it. And what he says is that he takes over companies that are struggling and then sells them off in pieces. That's not right, is it? Because what you do is...
No, I think he was what they call an asset stripper.
Gotcha, okay. So what sort of businesses or assets do private equity houses typically invest in?
I think ones where they think they can add value, either from their expertise in their portfolio, if they have a sector expertise, that sector expertise, where they think it needs a new level of investment on a P2P, where they think it will benefit from being out of the public arena and different considerations going forward. And obviously now with some of these companies that are so huge, the portfolio companies, bolt-on synergies, where they look at companies to add to their existing portfolio, their companies, and see that the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts.
And what makes...
I think the idea that private equity companies are somehow what's the word, vultures, sitting there to pick off assets and sack people and then make more money is a bit nonsensical, really. They're owners of businesses, in a lot of cases very responsible owners of business. Look at all the things they do around ESG and things like that. So, and I think what they do is buy businesses that they think they can add value to, and therefore everyone benefits.
Okay, you've been in the industry for such a long time. How, of all the sort of junior lawyers that have worked sort of in your team and ones you've come across on the other side of deals, what do you think are the classic attributes that private equity lawyers have who have been successful in their field?
I think an ability to see the wood from the trees. Not treat every problem as equally. Work out which problems are important for a client and which problems are less important, and focus on making sure that those problems are dealt with. Resilience and ability to hard work. There are, our clients work long hours, and so do we. But I think generally, I guess a spark of understanding of the business. Why are you doing the deal? What's important? Making sure that you'll follow everything is protected.
Yeah, and I guess in student and junior lawyer speak, that's essentially what commercial awareness is. Understanding, why a business wants to go down a particular route, what it means to it in terms of its strategic sort of plans longer term, what it means for other stakeholders.
Yeah, and I think also you need people who are interested in what the clients want and what they're doing. as opposed to just treating it as, today's legal matter and tomorrow there'll be a different one.
Okay. We're obviously living in uncertain times. Some green shoots appearing. We've got now a second vaccine that seems to be effective.
Yeah.
The UK is technically out of recession. What do you think the deals landscape looks like for 2021 and in private equity especially?
I think it's going to be very busy. I mean, it's been a terrible time in a lot of respects, but actually there've been a lot of deals. We've been very busy. Most of our peer firms that we talk to are very busy. Some of them are probably telling the truth. So there have been a lot of deals. There are there's a lot of private equity money and actually corporate money around looking to invest and I guess improve things. And I think it'll be the same next year. This
crisis that we're sort of encountering feels very different to the financial crisis in 2008 when I was still working as a journalist, and the sort of redundancy stories were inevitable. Everyone felt very nervous about their sort of position. I'm not sensing that as much, and you've got some firms who have actually gone ahead with salary hikes, etc. What do you think what lessons have firms learnt from previous downturns, and what can you say to reassure junior lawyers that their careers aren't about to fall off a cliff edge?
I think this is different. If you think this is not a downturn in the sense, if you look at 2008, 2008, I mean, it seems easy now because we're looking at it with hindsight, but you were there in 2008. People thought the world was at an end. A major bank had gone bust. What was going to happen? Was every economy around the world going to crash? Were people who worked in finance or city or doing things like that going to have jobs? There was a real fear. I mean, as it turned out, it was unfounded. Everyone came back bigger and stronger. But all people were worried about was, were there actually going to be a business? Now people are rightly worried about people. Who is ill, who isn't? How can we stop people being ill? How can we look after people? Who is suffering and needs help? Whose family needs help? What responsibilities people have? That is the first priority, to look after your people, make sure they're all right, make sure the people they're looking after are all right. The business sort of takes care of itself. So I think, how would I reassure a junior lawyer? I don't think I would. I'd say you don't need reassurance. You're in a business that actually, you look around the figures, what every law firm's doing. Rightly or wrongly, we're all actually very busy.
That is certainly what I'm hearing from other firms that I speak to, and I'm in regular.
And I think if you look at a number of firms, panic is the wrong word. Let's say we're prudent. All I really know is what I read in the press, but they didn't pay partners, they laid people off, they furloughed people, they cut salaries. Almost every day now you read about one of those firms paying people, putting the salaries back up, re-employing people. And I think we and most of our peers employ people for the long term. We're not a short-term business. Our clients think long-term, and so do we. And no knee-jerk reactions. The key thing, I think, if you look at any major organisation or serious organisation, what they've done in this crisis is looked after their people. That's your number one priority.
No, agreed. And I think that that is what buys loyalty from employees and gets people to stick around and actually put the extra effort in to work. Let's move on and talk about your career, because it's pretty lengthy. How did you get into law?
I guess there was. I wanted to be a barrister at one stage when I was at school. I did a lot of sort of debating and things like that, and it seemed I sort of quite fancied the idea of getting up in like robes and a wig and debating. But it turned out, first, I wasn't quite as good as I thought I was, and secondly, you actually needed at that time, maybe now, I don't know, to have some money to do it, which I didn't have.
I think that's still the case. It's a very expensive sort of route.
I don't know if you ever come across Dave Herrera, who's now at Paul Hastings.
I recognise the name, yes.
Yeah, he was a year ahead of me at school. And when I was looking, the school said, oh, well, he's gone to Manchester and he's going to be doing law and going to be a solicitor. you should do the same. So I thought, yeah, fine. He was rather more successful than me at school, so it seemed like a good thing to aim for. And I guess the rest is history.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how we're influenced by our contemporaries, friends, foes, or by our cultural backgrounds, etc.
Yeah.
So you went to Manchester, didn't you, and studied law there? At what point did you decide that you wanted to be a city lawyer? Because I know that for me, when I went off to university and studied law, I didn't even know what the city was, even though I'd done A-level economics, which is really embarrassing that I got. I knew what the city was, but I wasn't completely familiar with the fact that as a lawyer, you could go and work in the city. For me, studying law was about going off and working in a high street firm, advising criminals at the police station, or going to court. So the two things hadn't really married up. How did you become interested in sort of city?
To be honest, I did. It sounds ridiculous now, but at the time I didn't really think of it like that. I didn't know any lawyers or law firms. I went to the Manchester Careers place and applied to all the firms that were there, essentially. And as you know, when you do that, most of them are city law firms. So almost by accident, really.
Mm. So what do you know about a career in law now, having practiced for, dare I say, would you say, is it 30 years or longer? Have I made you sound older than you are?
I think actually it might even be 40 years.
Wow, okay. So what do you know? Because for me, the biggest difference was I hadn't fully appreciated things like the hours, although now I think there's a lot more transparency about work-life balance and firms are actually taking steps to fix that. But the one that jumps out now that I hadn't appreciated was the sheer volume of documents and how you'd be sat there with a 300-page document, really complex, and you ask yourself, how on earth am I going to review that in the next hour? Of course, you realise once you start that you don't need to review the whole 300 pages, you might need to review a particular section. What about you? What was different to what you thought might be a career might look like?
I think it was much harder work and more detailed. I mean, it was more rewarding in an intellectual sense, in that, it was reading documents, trying to find out things, making sure you got things right. So I think it was more intense, actually. I would never have realised that it was so intense in the sense of what was expected of you, what you had to expect of yourself.
Yeah.
And law, obviously, that was when I started at Clifford Turner in 1979. So law has obviously changed a lot in 40 years.
Clifford Turner is now Clifford Chance. Sorry? Clifford Turner is now Clifford Chance.
Clifford Turner is the Clifford from Clifford Chance.
Got you. Okay, right. And of course,
Clifford Turner and Cat Chance.
Yeah. So other than technology, because I remember, even though I had just about been born when you started Clifford Turner, I'm still pretty ancient myself. And when I joined Linklaters as a trainee, it was quite a big deal because we were the first cohort to have a computer each. And that was, quite a huge development technologically wise. And now, every day there's a new technology that's arriving and people are concerned about AI, etc. What's changed in your time?
Well, technology has clearly changed everything. I mean, look at the last 8 months. What would we have done without technology? We have worked from home, and I think most law firms have, and businesses seamlessly. Because we have the technology. Fortunately, we have a great IT department who've got everything working virtually perfectly. So it's sort of like being in the office. You couldn't have done that 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You've had to come into the office to work. So either people wouldn't have been able to work with whatever effect that had on the business and the economy, or more people got ill because they'd have had to come into work to actually, get jobs done. So I think technology is transformational in every, not just law, in every business, and how businesses adapt. Law is probably slower at adapting, but I think, if you look at the changes going on now with AI and other things, they're clearly going to affect law. We'd be crazy if we thought that we were the only business in the world that wasn't going to be affected by further technological advances. Probably affected in a way that I can't think of now, or not as we expected.
Yeah.
Over time and different people, but I think the idea that, you know, every day some technological advance we can ignore is just nonsense.
What piece of technology that you use now at work do you wish you had as a trainee?
I guess I like the laptop. I like the fact, you know, I was going to say I travel a lot. I used to travel a lot. You know, so the idea that, you know, wherever you are, you have everything with you.
Yeah.
You don't have to carry around bags of papers and, you know, rustle them out. And, you know, I think it's just fantastic that you can have your whole office in one little, you know, thing the size of a book, basically.
Did I agree with you? I know it's not a big deal probably because it is a laptop and they've been around for ages, but I think it's the laptop and the internet, because I remember as a disabled trainee, I was lucky to have my firm laptop. And I remember trying to take the laptop home and synchronizing my work emails using my home Wi-Fi. And it was quite an agonizing hour that I would have to wait before my...
I guess wireless broadband and internet is pretty good as well, thinking about it. You know, the days when you had to like plug in a wire into your phone and dial up and wait forever and then lost the connection half-time through something with downloading.
Precisely. And what about the scaremongering that often goes on about technology making lawyers redundant, and more specifically junior lawyers? Because there's quite a lot of technology out there that can do due diligence and, you know, all this sort of...
I think junior lawyers will like it in the end, to be honest. I don't think it'll make them redundant. I think it will make their job better because some of the drudgery will be taken out of it.
Yeah.
It means, you know, instead of moaning about why am I doing diligence for 2-3 years, they actually will have to find other things for them to do. So I actually think it'll make their lives better. And the other thing, if I was them, I'd be thinking they're the only ones who are going to understand all this technology. So they come with an advantage.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been on quite a few virtual events recently where we would have to log on half an hour earlier as the presenters, and most of the presenters didn't have a clue as to how to even log on, let alone speak as a virtual event, so to speak. Just going back to your career again, you know, you've said that you've been working in the legal sector for 40 years. What's the recipe for success? How have you got it? Because you're the longest serving managing partner, I think, of a, you know, in a London office of a US law firm. That's a pretty phenomenal achievement.
Yeah, depends which way you look at it, I guess. I'm not sure there is a recipe for success. I guess if you look at, have I been successful? If I have, I think it's because hard work. I work very hard every day. And I think if you look at most successful people, they work very hard. If I look at, you know, you talked about private equity at the beginning, Marco Campagnoni, who's certainly the most successful private equity lawyer I've come across in my 40 years, he works every day at being the best. Every day he's thinking, what new thing can I speak to about my clients? What new client can I speak to? Is this all right? Do I need to check up on this? Have I contacted this person? You know, he's constantly thinking of what is the new next thing. And he's a person who's reached the pinnacle of his career. So, you know, if he can do it, then everyone should be able to do it.
Were there any moments in your career where you thought, you've had enough, you can't do this? And how did you get yourself through that?
I'm very lucky. I've never thought like that. I've loved what I do from day one. Still do. Still very happy to get up every day and go to work in, I guess, in a loose sense here, walk upstairs. And I think I'm just very fortunate, you know, so I have to say, you know, have I had doubts? I probably have. The doubts, to be honest, have not been about law, or sometimes it's about, I don't know, internal politics or you know, dealing with someone who's a pain in the neck on the other side.
Yeah.
It's not about the job itself. I just love it.
Yeah,
I'm very lucky. Very few people get to do every day what they want to do.
Yeah, and talking to some of your colleagues, you know, they say that as a partner, you're extremely engaged with the work the office is doing, and, you know, in terms of the direction it's taking. And
I think it's really important at any level to be engaged. You know, when I work, I want to work with people who are enthusiastic and actually want to do the work and care about it. When I'm recruiting people, I want to recruit people who want to join Weil, who are enthused by the project. You know, you can be the best lawyer in the world, but if you're not engaged or enthusiastic, and you know, clients will sense it, and the people you work with will sense it, and it won't work.
And what about you know, the switch from becoming, you know, being a trainee, going through the sort of associate ranks and then going through partnership? What do you think? I know you said, you know, enthusiasm and hard work have been massive influences in your sort of career success. What about some of the skills you've had to deploy to get you over that sort of threshold? Because I think that one area that a lot of junior lawyers lack is the non-lawyering bit. You know, they appreciate that you have to have a sound knowledge of the law and know how to look for answers and where to find them, but they miss quite basic skills like dealing with people, having difficult conversations.
I think it's very different now from when I was much more junior, because you know, it's much harder to make partner at any firm. You know, the firms have grown so big. You know, we make so few partners compared to the number of people who could be partners. Whereas when I started out, you know, the proportion, many more people out of the people available became partners. But B, actually, you get a lot more help. You have career development, you have training, you have mentoring, you have sponsorship. So in that way, it's easy. But I think the thing to remember is everyone is different. There's not one size fits all. Even within a firm, there's not one size fits all. So you can't say what works for X will work for Y. It might not. So you have to go with what you're comfortable with. I think sometimes people try too hard. We're not expecting young lawyers to suddenly start developing huge chunks of business. What we expect them to do is be important parts of client teams and client relationship teams. And as and when they make partner fit into our strategy that helps us grow business as a whole. I think people worry too much about, have I got a contact? Have I grown that, you know, piece of business? I think the important thing to do is remember just to be a decent person, frankly. Clients like working with people they like. You know, lawyers, unfortunately, can be very self-important. You have to remember that actually, in a lot of ways, you're the least important person in the room. You know, the important people are the people paying your bill. I think where too many junior lawyers fall down is they sort of believe their own publicity about how great we are. Whereas, you know, we're only as great as the last person who gave us a bit of work and the last bit of work we did. So you always have to be on the top of your game. And
no, I agree with you. I think that it's shocking how some lawyers can be lack that self-awareness piece and think they're better than they are, they're more important than they are. And I talk to lawyers all the time about professional development on a personal, you know, and also sort of personal development. And the piece about relationship building comes up again and again and again and again. And, you know, it surprises me how that doesn't seem to register in the minds of so many young lawyers, or junior lawyers, should I say. What do you think has been your career highlight?
Yeah, that's a very hard one. I'm fortunate. I think I've had lots of things I could count. Getting a job was quite good in the first place. I think obviously making partner was good. You know, when you're maybe not now, not everyone wants to make partner now. People have different career paths and different ideas, which is fine. We have to cater for everything. But at the time, making partner was like everything. So making partner was definitely a highlight. So I actually think about it, when I've been at Weil about a year, 1999, we have an annual partners meeting in the first week of December, and well, it was in New York. It's a virtual one this year. And I remember waking up on the Saturday morning, and I got my copy of the FT, the international copy, and there were 4 deals on the front page, and we were doing all of them.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
In London, I thought, wow, you know, I should retire now. That is as good as it's going to get.
No, that is pretty phenomenal, and I think that does, you know, that's a key reason why so many students want to enter the profession, and at that level, because they want to see the work they do featured in the front pages of national newspapers, because it can be extremely gratifying. You've talked about hard work. It makes me worry, though, that are you making sacrifices in your personal life to achieve this? How do you go about striking that all-important work-life balance?
I'm definitely the wrong person to ask that. It's not something I'll ever manage to achieve. I think it's a very hard one, to be honest. And it's particularly hard when you're junior. As you get more senior, in a sense, it gets easier because you have a bit more control as you have other people working with it. As a junior, it's a very hard one. I hope that one thing pandemic and lockdown will have taught us and people like me is actually you can have all sorts of different models that fit. People working from home. A lot of people felt that didn't work, but it's worked brilliantly.
Agreed.
Different people with different needs, whether it's childcare, looking after relatives, just general mental health, have had different periods of availability. That's worked. So I would hope it would show you can actually have a work-life balance, still have an incredibly successful career.
Good.
I think if I look back, I'm very lucky that I have an unbelievably supportive wife and family who've put up with me all these years, and I guess when I did my garden leave between jobs in 1998, well, I thought it was great. I was with them all the time, but they kept on saying I upset the routine by being there.
Right. Okay. So what sort of things do you like doing outside of work? Because I know you're a massive Watford fan, aren't you?
Well, I used to like going to watch Watford. I guess it's a bit different watching them on the live hive. To be honest, I like spending time with my family. When I'm not off work, I spend so much time at work. I sort of begrudge really any spare time I have that's not spent with my family.
Great.
I haven't got a burning interest, stamp collection, something like that.
So no, that's fine, because otherwise I'd be getting you to write a blog about it. Anyway, let's talk about another topic that I know that both of us are massively passionate about, which is diversity and inclusivity.
Yeah.
For me, it's personal. Look, I'm Asian, first person in my family to go to university, I have a disability, etc. What's your firm doing in this space? Because the legal sector is always so far behind other businesses, and there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I know progress has been made. What is your firm doing to help that cause?
So I think the legal sector is way behind that times, and I think maybe this year has been a wake-up call to the legal sector. Unfortunately, I think I sort of say that every year, but actually it's not just the legal sector. I think it's actually the whole city, and maybe it's the business equivalent in other countries as well. So I guess we're doing in London a lot of things. So we've revamped the way we approach it in London. We've reset out our different committees. We've put different committees, I guess, or different groups in charge of very different diversity strands to try and give people responsibility and put it together. I would say the key thing we're looking at doing is actually, how do we stop just having policies, having training, having speakers, talking about people, knowing the right thing to do, to actually changing the makeup of the office.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can do everything you want. We do more on education awareness, whether it's in recruitment, whether it's part of appraisals, whether it's feedback, whether it's speaking out. I would be convinced we do as much, if not more, than any firm. But none of those work unless you can actually have the figures to show you're changing things. So we've been focusing a lot this year on actually statistics. What are our statistics? How have they changed? How do they make them change? And I think statistics. There's a quote. It's something. What is it? Something like there's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah.
That was. And that's sort of like all these things, half true. So I think the statistics themselves, you can't really just look at percentages, because law firms have such small numbers in almost any diverse category that almost any increase is a huge increase in percentages, and you can make yourself look good. You have to look at actual numbers. And for me, the measure is going to be looking in years to come. Have we got more senior diverse partners, diverse senior associates, people in the pipeline who are going to be partners? You know, the actual initial recruitment, I think we can improve. We can definitely improve. You can never not improve. But, you know, we're doing a lot, you know, we have a great graduate recruitment team, a great recruitment team who and look at that, and mustn't forget social mobility as well.
Of course.
But what like every organisation, we lose people very quickly somehow. We need to stop that. I think one of the key things we're working on is just how to make people more accountable, rather than, you know, partners being comfortable they're behaving well, how to do it more openly, how to call out bad behaviour, but also I think mentoring and sponsorship, how to encourage. You were talking earlier about, you know, networking and building relationships, how to make sure that everyone is in a situation they actually feel comfortable they belong in. And to do that, we have to change the office, and that's more than just training.
Agreed. I think it's got to be a combination of interventions, you know, a move towards a proper cultural shift. So that's got to come from, you know, partner down. But equally, I think, you know, where appropriate, you know, offering trainees from minority backgrounds, additional support where appropriate. And then that's what the Cheeky Little Careers trainee development program is all about. Because I think that, you know, sharing my own personal experiences, I remember wandering into Linklater's new offices, because my trainee intake were also the first to start at Silk Street, because prior to that they were at Wood Street. I think that's where the old office was. And, you know, as someone who's the first person in my family to go to university, turning up there, it was remarkable how sort of out of place I felt, because straight away I realised that there were very few people who looked like me, who sounded like me, and I had to quickly form an opinion as to which way I was going to take this. Do I try to change to fit in, or should the institution change to accommodate my needs? And this is controversial, and not everyone is going to agree with me. I think that there's got to be a bit of give and take from both sides, because I think you can have your cultural heritage and hold on to that, but still come across as perhaps, you know, more business-like, I guess, sort of thing. But yeah, it's a really sensitive subject, though.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think the thing is, law firms have to change, businesses have to change. They are changing.
Absolutely.
And you know, to be fair, it's not just us. The world is changing. People are much more conscious of this, and, you know, clients are more conscious than we are, I think. So that's obviously another important factor. But I think I like ways. I would hope the world will be a bit different. You know, if you joined a firm now, that there would already be established ways for everyone to give and take. But until there are role models that people can look up to, until people are understanding about differences in a better way, just as simple as, you know, appraisal feedback, work allocation, invitations to client events or marketing events, you know, you need to ensure they're done on an inclusive basis. You know, you can't say that's just business. Everything needs to be done on an inclusive basis.
Absolutely. And I think that it is doable, because I was talking to a junior lawyer recently, and her parents were saying to her, why are you going into law? Follow your older sister. She's a doctor. How many partners do you know who are Asian compared to the number of Asian consultants working in hospitals? And I know the medical profession has its own issues with sort of D&I, but I thought that was quite a damning summary, really, that, you know, if BAME individuals, or, you know, those from poor socioeconomic backgrounds can succeed in other professions, it shows that they've got the propensity to succeed, but is it therefore the sector that's failing them, sort of thing? So I think there's much more work needed. I don't think anyone has a silver bullet for that, because you know, it's such a big topic, and also so sort of.
But there is not a topic there's a silver bullet answer to.
No.
It's a gradual change, but I'm very much a believer it has to be a positive action change, as opposed to just assuming it's going to happen, because everyone knows that this is right and the policies are right, and they'll listen to the training and the education and change. I think we have to force it through a bit more. I mean,
I agree.
It's the biggest thing I think that will transform the profession, actually, if we can become a truly diverse profession.
And I think that and it'd be for the good of the profession, because
absolutely, every bit of research that you see shows that you get better results when you have diverse backgrounds and diverse minds thinking about them that come up with different ideas.
Absolutely. I think ever since I left the profession, initially to go to become a journalist, as you know, and then, to do my career coaching, although I've only ever worked in the legal sector, I've really diversified the people I now spend time with. My husband, again, doesn't work. He's a teacher. He doesn't work in the city. And I see the world quite differently to some of the lawyers I sort of coach, because they have quite a sort of binary view. It's very, and especially when it comes to things like career progression, because they think that there's only one way, which is to work towards partnership. And there are other ways of defining success in that capacity, I think. So yeah, back to you. So I think we joked about it before I started recording this interview that the average age for a private equity lawyer to retire is about 55. You said that even if I didn't want to flag it, most people will probably assume that you're over 55. What next for you? At what point do you sort of think, do you know what, that's it for me, I'm off? Or have you got many years ahead of you still? Because you love
I think the firm will think that before I will. I'm very happy, as I said, I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. I think it's not so much, to be honest, reaching an age. Different people operate different ways. I think it's actually how much energy people have, regardless of what age. I still feel I have a lot of energy and a lot of engagement. If that ever stopped, I wouldn't want to be working. I think the other thing is you obviously have to look at next generation succession. I wouldn't want to be hanging around and stopping other people moving up and achieving what they could achieve. That would be very counterproductive. But I've got no plans to go anywhere or do anything.
Should we quash those rumours now? Because I think even when I was a journalist and the lawyer, people were like, yeah, Mike Francies will be retiring soon because he's of that age. There are other partners who also feature in that list, and I won't name them out of causing them embarrassment. But no, it's good to see that you're as enthusiastic about the work you do from when we last spoke, which was a long time ago.
I don't think I wouldn't. I've got the best job in the world. I do something I love. It's really interesting. It is challenging. It changes every day. You have to reinvent yourself, whether it's with the pandemic, whether it's with the way the law business is changing and becoming more of a business, whether it's technology, and I get paid to do it.
I mean, I think we should end the interview there, because I think that's a lovely summary. And very lovely talking to you, Mike. It's been brilliant, and hopefully we'll get to see each other in person once the pandemic is over.
That's good. Well, it's really nice to talk to you, and congratulations on the Cheeky Little Careers.
Thank you very much.
I'll carry on liking every post.
Great.